Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. Who of you is working on questions regarding to our digitization of life and work style? Nobody? Really? Why not everybody? Okay, I would suggest we're all working on it because I believe we're all living more or less in the urban environment, and if not now, soon we will. So let me start. The challenge we're looking at here, and this is why we're looking at Dassault Systèmes as well at the urban, is that we're having an increasing world population. We all know about it, but we also have a massive increase of population moving into cities. And we believe strongly that we are ill-prepared in terms of the tools we have available in order to cope with the questions at hand. The questions are extremely complex and worthwhile, I think, all of our attention. Plus, of course, the population distribution is not even. We see a massive increase coming in Asia in particular. Now, this is linked to also our lifestyles, of course, in cities that has been widely informed through the last centuries, but predominantly through the 20th century, and as we've seen in the previous presentation, the automobile has, of course, created massively how we live and how our urban environment is shaped. Now, looking at this, only 3% of the surface of the Earth is actually covered with what we call cities or urban environment. However, most of our production and also most of our consumption is taking place in that environment. Now, why am I saying that? Is because the question would be, how do we rethink this very activity we're doing? And this is why I'm suggesting that you all will probably involved in these things as you're working for industries, as you're working maybe for municipalities, or as you having a startup and thinking of how does that startup is going to change our lifestyle. At Dassault, we would like to harmonize product, life, and nature, and what is behind this is really to think of how life cycle management that is traditionally used in the industries and beyond, how we no longer think from cradle to grave, but think really from cradle to cradle, engage in a totally circular condition, thinking of our materials never ever going to waste, but remaining in a cyclus, and the same for any type of energy, anything we're touching. So now we have, of course, digitization, top topic, probably under-evaluated still, I would say worldwide. So what can digitization bring to us? So far, if you look at smart city discussions, it brings a lot of data and a lot of sensors to the cities. The problem with this is, in my view, that this doesn't really become experiential. Citizens do not know what to do with it. Cities barely know, and businesses also haven't really gotten fully involved, except if they equip the cities with the technology. Now, therefore, the question is, if we are in a new age of digitization, with new business models coming along linked to platforms, with new opportunities coming along for all of us, how would we address this in the context of city or the urban life and work style, which should touch everybody of ours? I'm trying? Okay. There's a video. So the way we address this is with Experience City. We call it Experience City as a pendant and also a challenge to what usually is considered the smart city. An Experience City is a city where all of the data is collected, as we do that for Singapore, in a holistic, dynamic data model that then enables all the players, which means cities, businesses, and citizens alike, to join in and to create actively the city. It's a holistic approach. It undoes the silos as they exist and enables us to link to this dynamic data that is collected, not just a narrow view onto the city, but also to simulate and analyze if-when scenarios of the future. This is absolutely of importance if we think that increasingly the resources are narrowing, and in locations such as Singapore also you're running out of space, literally. In order to make the planning more effective, therefore, you got to invest into the question of how this could work for many people and tight resources. So I'm going to show this video to you, which introduces the 3D Experience platform, which is an integrative collaborative environment that we propose for everybody to engage in. It's very made also for startups that come and can play here. It's based on Dassault Systèmes technology and offers within that the suite of tools that we have available. You know probably CATIA, SolidWorks, software that traditionally has been used to build airplanes and simulate them in entire life cycle management. However, this tool is quite different because, as you see, it's a collaborative work environment that links back to the dynamic data model, shares information among those that work together, but also, of course, with the citizens, therefore creates a new transparency of how cities and businesses can communicate about their planning efforts. Here we see it's a cross-scale approach that you can zoom in. It is a complete 3D model in which you can actively simulate and analyze anything that you would like to build. Here you see this, terrain can be modeled. We can also look into the resources. We can map the entire cycle of where natural resources come from and so forth. It can be photorealistic if wished for. Entire BIM models can be implemented. And here you see infrastructure can be shown and can be also linked, of course, to the sensors and to the data that you may receive from the infrastructure. Virtual and real is very critical. Here you see a drone flying in not an animation but a proper simulation of its entire functionality over a territory. So here again, traditional technology that is used for large firms such as Boeing and Airbus are utilized in order to integrate those topics into a coherent whole, in this case what we call the 3D Experience City. Again, different interfaces possible, how you review this, and I think you get the understanding of what this is. So let me step you through the different components that are created here. So on one hand, first, we have a dynamic data model. Second, we have a city cockpit that is a viewing device that enables you to analyze and simulate and view the data. Then you navigate, have a collaboration environment, and also a forum with which you share the information with the citizens. Finally, on the left side, you see different applications such as modeling environment, simulation environment, business operation environment, and also the Internet of Things. Now, how does that work? It's relatively easy. Trying to forward this. Okay, so here you see with relative simple set of data that pretty much any type of city will hold, you can generate the basic fully geolocated tile that of course is also mappable onto the entire globe. And you can see here in how far very quickly with proper geolocation a 3D model can occur. Now, it doesn't have to be 3D. It could be any type of dimension that is preferable in order to get the work done. But here in this case, it's very suitable if you want, for example, to do wind analysis, if you want to apply things, particularly in increasingly more verticalized cities, this is relevant. Or here also trees can occur where you can, for example, in hot climates, test passive cooling and shading. Now, as already mentioned, the project consists out of a platform that then enables the analytic environment to be created. It's enabling a collaborative environment where many people can share the same file. It's not a file, actually it's the same data model, and therefore they can collaborate, understand which one is proposing which versions, and collisions can be quickly checked. You see on the right side, it's your right side, yes. You see here a complete model of a bridge that can be in its full functionality simulated, analyzed, and also the step-by-step could be mapped and how far it's going to be built and what the effects are for the environment in terms of traffic, congestion, and anything else you would like to analyze linked to it. Then you can also, of course, look at the infrastructure of the city, and that is a very critical, important component where we're looking at what is the city really made of in terms of water pipes, gas pipes, any type of piping infrastructure. And here, of course, what's interesting is how do you create something that enables you to service and to do predictive maintenance. And this is where we call it a virtual twin, which is the one-on-one in the virtual environment, fully digitized condition of the infrastructure of a city. Furthermore, because it is a three-dimensional capability here, we can simulate propagation of gaseous explosives. For example, on the left side, on the right side you see that, or on the left side for Singapore, we analyzed in how far wind propagation can be actively influenced, and therefore passive cooling could occur by changing an urban proposal before it's actually built. Next is critical for probably most of you in how far, let's say, the business operations can be understood in terms of the logistics and logics, where, for example, for a huge enterprise worldwide operating, a kind of cockpit occurs where you can watch and view the crisis moments maybe in the one or other factory, and then you can deep dive into what are the problems, and you can watch this cross scales. We've seen already automotive is a key question related to the city, and we're working closely with automotive companies here in inquiring in how far the feedback loop between that which we now envision as new mobility is linked also to the context of the city and vice versa, in order to create a new service industry that is based on a platform business model for the automotive industry, but of course also for the city. So what I have said here, in a way, is a platform fully universally applicable. It is open. It invites people to work to the different topics you see in the little bubbles, reaching from e-government to new mobility to facility management, pretty much anything that all of you startups could dream of and could participate. So in this case, it is absolutely open, and it helps and facilitates the work because it consolidates all these different efforts into one coherent referential. Plus, it comes in with a kind of technology suite, which is expandable, of course, that enables further activities linked to this very model. So finally, if you look at this, coming back to this whole discussion on the circular economy, we believe that only if we coherently approach the city question by creating a kind of dynamic data model that serves as a referential, which is shared by as many as possible, and that doesn't mean that the data is necessarily open and unsafe. It means rather that there is whoever owns the data, holds the data, can make decisions to which and to who the data is going to be accessible, can work across the platform with all different industries and disciplines together. So it is a cross-scale and cross-industry approach, which I strongly believe is the one approach that enables us to think holistically from cradle to cradle instead of cradle to grave. And finally, I want to conclude with a video from Singapore, which shows you an early stage of our work there. We currently model the entire state of Singapore, and this is a video that is probably backdating a year and a half, which focuses on a particular area. And the ambition is here to collect the data from Singapore into a dynamic whole that enables all the different parties within the city, all stakeholders, to come together, but most importantly also to communicate back to the citizens, to lift the consciousness of our everyday work and lifestyles within the city. So this model, of course, is a choice. As you see, is a particular look to it, a particular quality to it, and as such is a decision that has been made by the state of Singapore that they wanted it this way. We could show it in any other way because it's a fully customizable condition that we're creating here. The key, however, is that the way this is operating is open and asking for participation. It cannot succeed if it's linked to a single vendor. It cannot succeed if it's linked to a single authority, let's say. The key here is it's a massively universally applicable and also very democratic approach. I've come to my end now, and I would love to hear some questions and answer questions. So please, moderator.
I'm here. I'm coming to your rescue. First of all, thank you very much, Ingeborg Rocker. And yes, We still have a couple of minutes, so if you would like to ask a question straight away, then there will be a chance. I have one immediately while you're still thinking, because you talk about, I mean, this video at the end that you showed us, and you say that citizens can also basically participate. It's a very democratic approach, which I think is wonderful. But if one thing has been proven in democracy is that, I mean, you can't serve 100,000, 200,000 different opinions, different viewpoints. So how does this practically work that the citizens of Singapore, for example, first of all find out about this tool, access the tool, and then if you have all this different input, what do you do with it? How do you come to consensus?
Right. So first of all, of course, this is driven by the state of Singapore, to be clear. So the overall framework is predefined in a way for now. When I say that participation is wanted and asked for, yes, citizens participate in different ways. So one is they use actively the apps, that is more passive, but through usage they indicate also what's interesting and relevant to them. For example, school kids have participated in a research where they were analyzing which paths are they taking, what are the real interests they have within the city, or older citizens participate because they use the platform in order to communicate their needs. So there's a big push in Singapore to be much more responsive to, let's say, kind of a sentiment analysis as well, in a way that you analyze what is available in data and then feedback. Now this is all still more passive in a way how the citizens involved. But anybody who would like to be, let's say, writing an app is like anybody here maybe writing an app can of course launch this app, and then I would say it's almost like natural selection. The app is either taken and many users will find it interesting, or it isn't. But what's the key is here, instead of, let's say, having on your iPhone lots of different apps, this here brings all of the content together and in one view portal that you can then choose from what you would like to look at. So, and that's, I think, a difference here.
Okay. Anyone else? Any hand up? Is this a hand? No, that's not a hand. That's somebody scratching his head. No, it looks like oh yes, there is somebody. Here we are. You see, it's just very dark down there.
Thank you very much for the interesting talk. When you say the technology is open, what does it mean? It has open standards, or it is pluggable, or it has even open source? What is it exactly?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So open right now, and again, we start working on this more. So open is that any type of data can right now be integrated. That's the openness, and we're working on standards, and we're also involved in standard organizations to find out which standards are the appropriate ones that should be advocated. So it's a work in progress, let's put it that way. Right now it's as open as any type of data could be visualized, and it's a big question, how do you do almost an ethical check as well, right? What data is appropriate to be here viewed and whatnot. So right now it's still more or less contained, if you want, because it's still very much in the development with the city of Singapore, the state of Singapore. So we haven't really fully yet handed it over to the citizens to see what really then also the question of openness really means and entails in terms of reactions towards it. The idea, however, is that any type of data that exists is remaining with the owner of the data, and the owner of the data releases it to whatever extent they choose to. What it means in terms of feedback loop from the public needs to be seen and probably needs to be further developed, of course. Yes.
All right. Well, Ingeborg Rocker, time is up now, and if more questions pop up, I believe you have a few minutes to wait at the meeting point and take those questions. So thank you so much for presenting the 3D experience with us.